contribution in the field of public administration. He retired as Chief Secretary Punjab, and this book, his account of the years before and after Blue Star, took some 38 years to write. In his brief preface, he writes that it is his way of initiating dialogue to open the way to introspection and perhaps reconciliation and closure. Talking to him, we have Barkha Dutt, one of India's foremost broadcast journalists. After 2 decades with NDTV, she is now founder-editor of Mojo Story, an independent digital media platform. A columnist for the Washington Post, she has received more than 50 national and international awards, including the Padma Shri. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Are you all able to hear us? Or आवाज आ रही है ना? So I want to start, sir, by sharing with you कि मैं कल आई अमृतसर और एक हमारे साथ हमारे टैक्सी के ड्राइवर थे, young boy, का नाम गगनदीप, and he was clearly not even alive. You can all hear me. Good morning. You can all hear me? Yeah. Okay. So I was saying कि मैं कल आई यहाँ पर और मेरी टैक्सी में जो मेरे साथ ड्राइवर थे उनका नाम था गगनदीप. And Gagandeep was obviously not even alive when Blue Star took place. He's a very young boy. But on his own, he started talking about Bhindranwale, Indira Gandhi, Akali Dal, kya hua, kya nahi hua, what he thinks about, every few months there will be some political narrative कि Khalistani sentiment alive hai, nahi hai. And I realized that it may have been 38 years, but this is a fault line that hasn't actually been mended. This is a conversation that has trickled down the generations, and it's trickled down, as you have written, in competing narratives. So everybody has their own interpretation, but it's a very live conversation. So this impression that ye purani baat ho chuki, just that conversation with him made me realize that even Punjab's young people who were not witness to it, who were not even alive when this happened, have very strong opinions on it. But I want to start by asking you, you reference, when you explain why you wrote this book, there were many things that stopped you initially, the Official Secrets Act, you needed a certain amount of time to pass. But you also say that it was your conscience that propelled you to do this. From there I interpreted that there was something about your conscience that was not comfortable with what happened. So I want to start there. Why were you not comfortable? What disturbed you the most?
Well, thank you very much, Barkha. This book, I have tried to capture the entire 360 degrees of Punjab problem. Now, if you have read the book,
Yes.
I don't know how much of it you have read, it brings out the kind of falsehood, the narratives which were built by different political parties and trust groups, and they were marketed not only by the political parties but even by the state agencies. Take for example Blue Star itself, the way it was conducted, way it happened, who ordered it, why it was ordered, and to talk about Khalistan which you are mentioning, let me narrate it very clearly and categorically that this entire period of 2.5 decades is not a story of Khalistan. Khalistan might have been a small part of it, which was kind of, partly by foreign agencies, partly by our own political parties, and also because of competitiveness within the political parties. Akali Dal, Congress, within Akali Dal. And let me also make it very clear that Pakistan never supported Khalistan. I'm making this very categorical statement today.
Explain that, because clearly there's a lot about the role of the ISI in the book, and you actually say that the ISI engineered a conflict
Yes.
between the
They did.
Babar Khalsa and Bhindranwale, which is what led to
You're very right.
Bhindranwale moving into the Akal Takht space.
You're very right.
So, why then do you simultaneously say that Pakistan did not mentor this idea of Khalistan?
No, see, let me clarify this. It is not that Pakistan did not bankroll the militants.
Yeah.
It is not that they did not propagate the slogan of Khalistan. But that was not their intention. The day some of these terrorist organizations published their map of Khalistan, Ziaul Haq went into a rage because Lahore was part of the Khalistan, Nankana Sahab was part of Khalistan, Panja Sahab was part of Khalistan, and Pakistan could never afford to have, these parts of Pakistan as part of Khalistan. What their intent was, let me also clarify that so that I am not misunderstood. It is not that Pakistan ISI did not support the militants. They did. They did to the hilt. They trained them, they provoked them, they enticed them, armed them, But look at the kind of arms they gave them. Now, you have seen what has happened in Afghanistan. The Mujahideen, they had tanks, they had anti-tank weapons, they had rockets, And what did the Pakistanis supply the Khalistani, so-called Khalistani militants? Maximum weapon was AK-47. Now, do you create Khalistan, another state, by AK-47?
So I guess what you're saying is Pakistan funded, enabled these militants, these terrorists, but their end goal was not the creation of a separate state, but to drive the wedge within India, which is obviously what happened. Now, one of the things that you write very interestingly is the perception of Blue Star. And you say if you talk to Sikhs about Blue Star, sending in the military into the Golden Temple, it's a very different perception from if you ask the same question to Indians outside of Punjab, who obviously thought that the original sacrilege was these armed terrorist militants inside the Golden Temple to begin with. Now, you argue that the chain of command of the military was actually bypassed.
Yes.
That Indira Gandhi and General Sundarji had a direct chain bypassing the army chief. That's and the army chief subsequently gets assassinated 2 years down the road. That's a very, very serious sort of revelation in this book. Could you speak a little bit about it?
Yes. You see, what had happened was that Blue Star as a decision was kept a highly guarded secret. It was sometime in the month of May that Cabinet Subcommittee took the decision to authorize army into Golden Temple. At that time, negotiations were going on between the Akalis and the central government. 26 meetings in all had taken place.
Between who and who?
Well, 4 of these were with Mrs. Gandhi. Many of these were with the union ministers. Some of these were even with Rajiv Gandhi. Some of these were in between the various going-betweens like Captain Amrinder Singh or Swaran Singh or even Harkishan Singh Surjit, the leftist leader. So on and so on. After the decision was taken by the Cabinet Subcommittee in mid-May, General Vaidya was called by Mrs. Gandhi on 25th of May and authorized to proceed in Golden Temple. 26th May, the last meeting between the Akalis and the central government was held. And in that meeting, Tora has filed an affidavit in Delhi High Court as a part of the SDPC's compensation claim that 4 union ministers came, the principal secretary to Prime Minister came, the cabinet secretary came, they negotiated, everything was agreed, they said, all right, we'll get back to you in the afternoon. They came back in the afternoon and said, sorry, it can't be agreed. Whereas, mind you, this is 46th day, whereas the Chief of Army Staff had already been authorized on 25th day to proceed to Amritsar. 29th May, the advance party of Army had reached there. Army was also not given enough time. You see, had they been given time to plan, and chalk out the operation, probably what happened would not have happened. Of course, there are other issues why the weapons were allowed inside the Golden Temple, why fortifications were allowed, all
And
those.
that was going to be my question, because let me, since that is my role here, to push back a little bit on some of the arguments you make. You obviously had enormous disagreement with Blue Star, the way it was executed, the way it was organized, and you make the point that at the last stage there could still have been an offer to surrender which was not made. But usse pehle, the fortifications, I was having the same conversation with my driver who said, बहुत गलत हुआ, किस तरह फौज भेजी? And I said, पर आप ये क्यों नहीं कहते कि वो sacrilege जो था, वो पहले ही शुरू हुआ, with these men sitting inside with their weapons and building those fortifications? So what is the answer to that?
No, you're very right. You see, the sacrilege of Golden Temple was first committed by the militants. It is they who armed the entire Golden Temple complex, fortified it, they tempered with the sacred architecture.
Yeah.
When you put holes into the walls and you put machans inside the Golden Temple is not to be a place of fortification. So the first sacrilege was committed by the militants, and ISI, as I have explained, they triggered. In Makkah, 2 years before Golden Temple Blue Star operation, there was a similar capture of the Holy Mosque of Makkah. And the Pakistanis, they had assisted the Saudi army to capture it. The war went on virtually for 10-14 days. There was a revolt in the Saudi army and so forth. So Pakistani ISI had I would say the vision, to foresee that if you commit sacrilege of a sacred place, it will invite a lot of reaction. So they triggered a fight through their ISI channels between Babbar Khalsa and Bhindranwala, though they were not on same wavelength. As a consequence of which, Bhindranwala was kind of suggested that you move on to Akal Takht. And Akal Takht was fortified, and we know what happened then.
So here's the question. Having established that that was the first sacrilege, obviously you say the second sacrilege was to storm the temple. What could have been done alternatively at that point? When you say ki the offer to these men, to Bhindranwale and his men to surrender was not made, can you elaborate on that? What is an alternative way this chapter of history could have been written?
It's very easy to sit back 38 years and then say, look, this could have been done, that could have been done. Yes, a few things could have been done. As for example, it was agreed in the army and civil conference that they will negotiate with the militants to come out. It was also agreed that areas around Golden Temple, and you are all from Amritsar, you know what a thickly populated walled city it is. You see, when you bring in tanks, you bring in armed weapons, artillery, and you fire those shells into the population, what will happen? So it was anticipated that it is possible that civilian population will suffer. They were to be evacuated. We were told keep buses ready to evacuate them, but ultimately nothing happened. You see.
Why not?
I don't know. Army brass has to answer that. On 5th.
Could it be, just imagining having covered insurgencies and operations like this, could it be that the army thought that if there's mass scale evacuation of civilians, then you're basically tipping off or outing the operation, which obviously had to be top secret?
Yes, I won't contest that. But I would like to put a rider there that, army had moved in and surrounded the Golden Temple. The possibility of that could be minimized. But attempt had to be made. belong to Amritsar. I mean, you all belong to Amritsar. See what happened in the walled city? Over 360 properties, they got demolished completely because of the shelling. How many people died? People had to run away. Forget the terrorists. You see, terrorists is a separate part. What happened to the ordinary citizen? I remember one of employees of the Food and Civil Supplies Department. The poor fellow, his house was, he considered himself to be very privileged that his house was next to Golden Temple. And then the selling started, they ran out, he lost his wife. Till date, we have not been able to find out what happened to her.
And you're right that one of the, please correct me if I'm wrong, one of the general officer commandings had actually suggested that when this operation happens, it should be videotaped and there should be two non-Sikh sort of eminent citizens who should be allowed as independent observers of what's happened, but both of these proposals were disregarded.
Yeah. No, this was actually General Sinha and General Nair, these two generals, they were not involved in the Blue Star. You see, in around March or so, 1984, it was Army had an inclination that they may be called. So they worked on it, the Directorate of Military Operations. They prepared a plan, but anyway, that plan was, I think, even not shared with the generals involved in the Blue Star operation. That's the saddest part. You see, our left side, hand of army did not know the right hand side what they were thinking. And this is the and let me tell you another thing. I blame, for example, General Barkha Singh. These militants admire him. But look at what a devastation he has brought to the Sikh nation. If you treat Sikh as a nation, he got the entire top echelons of leadership of this movement at one particular point. And after having commanded Mukti Bahini in Bangladesh, he should have better known, that these operations can just liquidate and wipe out the entire force of the movement, and that's what happened. In less than 12 hours, the entire top rung of militant leadership was not there. It did not exist. So what is police strategist, I would say he was.
So I again ask, what could have at that moment alternatively been done? You've spoken about civilian evacuation. You have spoken about a negotiated offer to surrender. Do you believe that if that offer had been made, that surrender would have taken place?
Possibly.
And what is the evidence for that?
Possibly. I have narrated in my book how when we came to know that army was going to move in the same night, it was sometime in the afternoon. So I brought it up with them that you said that we will issue warnings. No warning has been issued. So ultimately the command got back to me and said, look, we don't have to issue any warning. You want to issue, you issue the warning as the district magistrate of Amritsar. So I requisitioned the public relations van, made some announcement. These were ineffective because these vans are they are not armed vehicles, they are ordinary buses with a loudspeaker on top. The buses could not go very close to, fearing that they may be fired at, and the Granthis inside the Golden Temple, Harmandir Sahib, started Kirtan. And the entire thing fell through. Then we thought, let's send someone inside. Dr. Balev, if I remember his... no, the head of the SGPC hospital, Balev Singh, who later on was also killed by the terrorists. Dr. Brad. So I got into my car along with IB, Superintendent of Police and others. We went to Scotland, but by that time the firing had again started, and the entire operation fell through. Let me also share with you, General Barkha Singh and General Brad, who was the commander of the operation, they were together in Indian Military Academy. Barkha was instructor and Brad was under training. Then they were again together in Bangladesh war. They were both decorated officers, mishandled. I would say Barkha was mishandled. And consequently, had they talked to each other, I'm sure they could have worked out a negotiated settlement.
What do you believe General Brad would have wanted to do?
No, because look, I don't know. so I won't like to comment on this, but my inference and hunch is that this was not the brief of General Sundarji and Barat, you see, for a negotiated settlement. This is my fear. I hope I am wrong. Uh,
And I guess the question that we now have to confront is what is the, as I said, the trickle-down impact of this decades later if young people who were not even born then are talking about this, asking questions about it.
Barkha, that is the point. When you mishandle national issues, you see, you create conflict rather than resolve conflicts. This is bound to happen. Now, if you go back, 1978, you see, the Sikh Nirankari clash. That is what triggered the entire so-called ethno-national movement. It was not handled properly. 78, 79, 80, 81, 82. You see the entire the people who got killed. Who were they? They were Nirankaris. Hindus were not the target. You see. So Sukhdev Singh Babba has gone on record holding a press conference that my organization has killed 32 Nirankaris, but we don't believe in killing Hindus. You allowed the movement to drift slowly, did not take effective steps, law and order measures. Consequently, a stage came when Pakistan started funding these terrorists, weapons started flowing into the Golden Temple, fortifications took place, these boys went across to Pakistan to get training, came back. Almost all the top leaders of so-called terrorists or Khalistanis, whatever you may like to do, they have been to Pakistan before 84, you see. So, the point I am making is, in India, unfortunately, all political parties politicize the issues according to their own political gains. They do not believe in building a nation. They believe in polarizing the nation. Take, for example, the recent farmers' agitation. Now, supposing, I am giving you an illustration, you see, this noise which was being made, that they are Khalistani, terrorists, वो 5-10 दिन 15 दिन होर चलता रहता है एवं जिवें हैं जी ते वो टकैत जिहड़ा सीगा ਉਹਨੂੰ यूपी ਤੋਂ support ना मिलदी और रोंदा ना, this entire movement would have been dubbed as Khalistani movement. I have given instances even during Blue Star how stories were planted. You see this.
Can I interject there, because two different points. We'll come to the farmers' agitation, but on the media, since you've spoken about stories being planted. You make 2 points about the media. You say that the media at that time became a tool for the extremists.
Yes.
That's the first point. But that the blackout of information, which is what happened, media was blacked out, actually empowered the terrorists more than the military, because Aam Janta in Punjab was not able to see what the militants themselves were inflicting. So speak a little bit about that media blackout, and we'll come to the farmers' agitation.
I tell you, both the Sant Jarnail Singh Padrawale and Sant Chan Singh Longowal, they were conscious of the importance of media, and they wanted to build public opinion in favor of their movement. Both wanted कि अखबार शुरू करिए सी, but there was a Tribune correspondent posted in Amritsar, Dalbir Singh. उन्हें कहा जी संतो ये तो 1.5-2 करोड़ रुपया चाहिए होना है जी अखबार शुरू करना है, इतना नहीं गल बननी चाहिए। वो कहता था 10-15 हज़ार तक स्टेनगन आ जाती है कि ये इंडिया खरीद लेते बाबा कर रहे सारे, So the military, the strategy of the militants, it was drafted right in the beginning. कि भी ड्राल हो ना, international press came, and they would go to Sant Jarnail Singh Padrawala, Longowala was bypassed very often, and he got publicity, and the movement fanned, and of course these hijackings and other things, killings, particularly innocent Hindu killings, pulling them out of the buses, and so on and so forth. So a strategy by the militants, I remember Sanjeev Godwa of Indian Express was the first correspondent here. He was stabbed. Sometime I think it was Preet Ladi, you have instance here. At least 15-20 of Amritsar local district journalists died. take Hinsamachar group of newspapers, how many of their correspondents died? So the strategy of the militant was browbeat them. The journalists also, because they feared to go outside to do investigative journalism is not easy. Many of them also got bumped up in the process of building their equations with the militant groups.
Yeah.
So what happened then was that police will give press handouts, and media will publish it. And there was a competition within PTI and UNI. I remember the Press Council of India commenting on it in writing that they were exaggerating the number and inflating the number of the killed. Because each wanted to get. Do you know this Asiad, for example? How this entire Asiad thing got blown up? Sant Jarnail Singh, Sant Longowar, in Manji Sahib was delivering a press conference. I mean, he was meeting the people. And he said, "Ki ji, assi hona Delhi jaake Asiad de baar demonstration kara." I remember Gautam was his name, God bless his soul, he's no more, a very fine person otherwise, UNI. Now, he immediately came to, take a lead and filed a story that Akalis announced that they will disrupt Asia. Now, it blew up in the ticker. PTI, Gurdeep Singh was at that time a correspondent here. He later on, but most of the newspapers, including Congress leadership, they believed that. And Bhajanlal was alerted, and you know what happened? Then searches took place. Journals, high court judges, they were pulled out of the vehicles. The movement got a further flip. The point I'm making is the press has to play a very important role in this. Now, whether the press is terrorized by the terrorists or the press is kind of bought over by the powers that be, whatever it is, it's the same. So, unless you have independent media which investigates, reports, democracy is in danger.
But for any government, when faced with the challenge of terrorism, I mean, you were describing how Hindus were pulled out of buses and shot. I was remembering the Kanishka bombing, ISI hand. It's a very, very, it's a minefield to walk on.
Yes,
because you need to ensure the security and the robustness of the state, and you need to do it smartly so that you don't actually empower the terrorists. And I guess what you're saying here is that you don't think Blue Star was smart.
No, it was not. No, it was not. And let me add on this. It's not I who am saying. You have General V.K. Singh, former Chief of Army Staff, now a Union Minister, who has gone in writing in his biography, autobiography. It was a blunder. General Poon, who succeeded General Sundarji as GOC Western Command, he has said that it was worse than Jallianwala Bagh. This is the exact expression he has used. And let me add here, both of them were nonsense. So it is not just, the problem with evolving democracies is when a problem emerges, there is so much of Allah about it, that a reasonable sense at that time, can you ever imagine an army general saying, he would have been sacked. But today, after so many years, you have a former Chief of Army Staff, you have a former Chief of Western Army Command who succeeded Sundarji, and he's accused Sundarji that he wanted to become Field Marshal, and had he succeeded in his mission, he would have become. Now, if these are the ambitions, and that is how you get carried away, internal criticism within army is very strong, and army has been very, very critical of Operation Blue Star. They may not say so. That's a different thing.
Even Operation.
We had a battalion of Sikh regiment inside Golden Temple guarding Tosha Khana. The very, very next few hours after Blue Star.
You also write about how the Home Secretary gave a very reluctant requisition or sanction for this to happen. He was asked to sign and he didn't want to.
You know, look, these conflicts always come in. Even B.D. Pandey didn't want army to be requisitioned, and he has recorded so in his autobiography. Amrik Singh Puni also had reservations, but we are all civil servants. Either you do your job or you quit. You see, some of us have quit. Simranjit Singh Maan quit, for example. You know, others may not have quit. So, when you are told to do this, well, you can have your opinion and say, look, I have my reservations, but yes, if a government wants, I'll do it.
Let's argue it from the other side for a moment. I think we've heard a lot from you on why it was a mistake, what could have been done, and so on, and how it actually empowered, if anything, the separatist sentiment rather than stemming it. अब इसको दूसरे नजरिए से आप देखिए, you spoke about the farmers' agitation, and you said that all the protesting farmers were being vilified as potential Khalistanis. I agree with you. I was there reporting the farmers' agitation, but there were also characters within that agitation. Well, we all remember what happened at the Red Fort.
Deep Sidhu.
Now I'll tell you, I was interviewing Deep Sidhu without initially knowing who he is. I just saw him. He was at the protest. I was interviewing him, and that was the day when this right-wing trolls on social media had started that ye to sab Khalistani hai, they're carrying Bhindranwale's photos in their pockets. So I asked him, thinking that he will say ye to this is an attempt to slander our movement, ye to aise hi hamare bare mein baat karte hain, they want to my horror, instead of saying that ye to sab jhoot hai, ye hamare ko vilify kiya ja raha hai, he's launched into a passionate defense of Bhindranwale, in which he and I started arguing. And I said, and I remember calling up, the interview went kind of viral, and somebody told me, "Arey, aapne isko manch kyun diya? Why did you give him a platform?" I said, I had no idea who he was. I met him at the protest. I interviewed him. I thought he would do a denial. I remember talking to Yogendra Yadav later, who's very involved with the movement, and I said, this guy is going to sabotage your movement. He is going to give your whole movement a bad name. And then few months later, you saw what happened on 26th January. Now my question to you is, today, if you had to look at what is the impact of what happened 30 years ago, and you will meet the odd person here who will defend Bhindranwale and say whatever he says, as Deep Sidhu said, Deep Sidhu may have said it for his own reasons.
Yeah.
What is that impact? What is the damage, the lingering damage that we should beware of?
See, the single message I would like to give, and I'm very clear on this, on law and order issues, you cannot compromise. Two things: effective government and just government. If you do not have these two, you see, you will have revolts over a period of time, more so in a state like Punjab, where over centuries the violence has become kind of a part of our internal society. Now, in the case of Punjab, also, if you see, as I said, it was not a Khalistan movement, but finding few people who support Khalistan, either for their own personal advancement or for their political objectives. Who were the heroes of Khalistan in the initial years? Jagjit Singh Chauhan, who was a finance minister in Punjab, went to England, opened an office of Khalistan. What is his contribution to Khalistan? Nothing. He was being funded by Pakistan. You see, print kari janda si, aram naal baitha siga utte. Ganga Singh Tillon, his wife and Ziaul Haq's wife were from Africa together, and he used to get access to Ziaul Haq. Funding ho rahi sigi, chal raha siga. And I'm sure the same must be true of the present day Khalistanis sitting, this referendum 2020. There will always be people who will be willing, for whatever reason, to raise these voices, and very often, please read Kuldeep Nayyar, please read even Jacob.
Satish Jacob and Mark
Satish Jacob
Tully's
and
book,
Mark Tully's books. These such eminent journalists have mentioned how Jagjit Singh Chauhan, Ganga Singh Tillon, they were meeting the central leadership. Jagjit Singh Chauhan himself met Mrs. Gandhi twice, you know.
I mean, we know that Bhindran, it's, you know, like happened in Sri Lanka. Bhindranwale was a creation of Indira Gandhi and the Congress to fight the Akalis. Sri Lanka, you create the Prabhakaran and then you land it with fighting the LTT. So these are very cynical games, and that's why I want to come to the present. You know, are you have said all of this is rooted in the politics of polarization.
Yes, yes.
And what is, where is that politics in today's Punjab? And I don't mean one party or the other. I simply mean on the ground. You know, I think somewhere you said that Hindus did leave and they came back once the troubled years were over, and so it wasn't a permanent rupture like
No,
partition
never,
was.
never.
But aaj ke tareekh mein, for example, we have so many politicized conversations about blasphemy, beadbi, sacrilege. What is concerning you? Are there warning signs that we should be careful of?
You see, the fault lines in Punjab society are very deep, and we have to be very careful of these. At the risk of saying so, say, you know, we are too much into religion. Too much into religion. Punjabis, please start. Religion is important. It is our faith, but that is not life. There is something beyond religion which is life. World is moving forward. You have to talk of economy. You have to talk of development. You know, ਉਸੇ ਖੂਹ ਦੇ ਡੱਡੂ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਅਸੀਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਬੈਠੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇਗੇ ਉਹੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਲਿਆ ਕੇ ਫਸਾਈ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ। ਹੁਣ ਬੇਅਦਬੀ ਦੇ ਲੈ ਲਓ, it's very sad it happened. It's very, very unfortunate. But how many years have we spent on it? 5 ਸਾਲ ਤੱਕ ਕੈਪਟਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕੱਢ ਗਏ। 6 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਹੁਣ ਆਪ ਵਾਲੇ ਆ ਗਏ। And is it leading to any end? You know, some people have got their stage. They are making noises. You know. So Punjabis, please move on. Religion is important. Faith is important.
I think that is the perfect note to say thank you to Mr. Dinesh Singh. You know, too much religion, there is such a thing, and of course also that history is condemned to repeat itself unless you change its course. Thank you, sir. It's a brilliant book, and thank you very much. Preeti.